Are you just trying to live, laugh, or love? Or are you just trying to do all of the above? This is the podcast for you. If you're an aspiring comic, a headlining comic, a class clown, or just an average bro or doe looking for a good time, you, my friend, are in the right place. Welcome to the magical world of Just Trying to Podcast. Here we go. Welcome, triers, doers, and everything in betweeners. This is Just Trying to Podcast with your host, Mike, Tony, Heath. And this week we're talking all about just trying to talent stack. Part 2. We're following up part 1 of talent stacking, where we introduced the idea, started the conversation, and over the last couple weeks, we've been able to hear from you and other folks across the world, across the cities that I've been in, around what y'all think about talent stacking. I'm pretty excited to hear the conversation that we have today. What we're going to do is we're going to have interviews, and whether they be in-person video interviews or just people who called in to the poddy and hear from them and what they think about talent stacking and how that applies to their life, even stacking their days as we introduced. So if you haven't listened to part 1 of Just Trying to Talent Stack, go back to episode 12, listen to that. It's very brief, and then come back to this. This is kind of like the part 1 was kind of like the primer, a very shortened, like introductory, and this is kind of like the in-depth, getting in the weeds. It's going to be pretty fun, pretty funny. I sure hope so. And next week, we're going to have our second ever live in-person guest here in the poddy. I'm going to keep it a mystery of who that's going to be, but you're not going to want to miss it. Tune in for episode 15 next week. But before we get started in this week's episode, digging in, we wanted to do our supporter spotlight. So this week's episode is brought to you by supporter of the poddy, George Little. Thank you, George Little, for making Just Trying to Podcast possible. We couldn't do this without you, and we love you. Let's hear a word from George Little himself.
Hello folks, George Little here. I became a supporter last week after hearing Robert Mifflin share his passion for supporting the poddy. It really is worth every shekel. My favorite episode is Just Trying to Keep Portland Weird. I particularly enjoyed Mike's review of Coffee and PDX. Anyways, do it. Support the poddy, even if it's only for a couple dollars a month.
Thank you, George. Those were moving words. Almost brought a tear to my eye. Thank you, George. All right, let's get into some comments from y'all, the audience. We have 2 comments this week, both from last week's episode, Just Trying to Stop AI. Our first comment is from Tech Noob. He was, I'm going to just summarize his comment. He was saying, why don't you develop a system of actually speaking to each of the different cameras? Is there a way, is like a foot pedal, a switcher, where you can just switch between cameras? Or what if you just tried talking to each of the different cameras like it's a television show, where you're moving to different segments and just talking to different cameras? I like that idea, Tech Noob. Now I'm just trolling. But really, that's a very interesting idea. I will try to do that today. I don't have a foot switcher or a way to just change which camera is. I don't know. I understand nothing. I don't know anything about cameras. I'm just learning. But this is a fun way, just looking at different cameras and talking to them. So thank you, Tech Noob. I appreciate you. For real, though. You're giving me good advice. I don't know what SEO is. You also told me about that. Tell me, what is SEO, and should I use it? Educate me. Happy to hear. SEO. Is that somebody I would hire? Is it like a CEO? It's a type of executive officer. I don't know what the S would stand for, but I'm very interested to learn. So let me know, Tech Noob. And our second comment comes from a listener in Australia. I didn't know we had a listener in Australia, but Joe Rugen. I thought it said Joe Rogan. I thought I just misread it, but it's Joe Rugen. Joe Rugen's comment from Australia. Mike, you told me, quoting the Morning Brew, that we will become overrun and obsolete by AI. Thank you for bringing this to the public conscious. We need to know about the impending apocalypse that we are about to be thrown into. He goes on and on about seems like a kind of a little bit of a rabbit hole. But Joe, thank you so much for leaving that comment. I it just, that you relate to that. I think, I think we should stop AI for 6 months to get some ground rules. But also I think that there's a compelling argument to maintain the pace. I would say I lean towards stopping for 6 months. But also, I think, let's go a little bit further. Let's just see how it plays out a little bit more. And if it starts getting more crazy, nothing crazy has really happened, I think. Maybe something crazy has happened. If something crazy has happened, Joe, that you know about, it's like this impending apocalypse that seems kind of dramatic to me, but maybe you know something I don't. Let us know. I would love to let the world know. All right, where I've been in comedy. What I've been doing in the comedy world. I must confess, I missed 2 days of writing over this last week, so I broke my streak. I'm not going to hit every day in April like I hoped to. However, I will not miss another day in April. That's my goal now. Really excited about this new bit I've been developing about wetting the bed. I think it is pretty funny, pretty stoked about it. If you're wondering what I say about it or what the joke is, you can come see me this Thursday live on 4/20 at 7 p.m. Doors open at 6:30 at West Plains Roasters for the Cheney Comedy Showcase. Feature comic Kate Carlson from Seattle. And then you have a local Spokane comic, Charles Hall Jr. will be our headliner. It's going to be a hot show. He is real funny. You can come see what I have to say about wetting the bed then. But I've been working on that. I went to the Substation Monday mic that happens once a month here in Seattle. I've been developing this bit for a few weeks, but I discovered something on stage. And that's what happens. You kind of write out your joke. At least for me, I write out my joke. But then when you're on stage, like an idea comes and you'll try that and be like, wow, that was like really good. So I found a punchline there that I didn't come up with writing, just performing. It was a decent set. I tried it again. Or I tried again at the Water Wheel. Was not as good. Not as good then on Wednesday. And went better when I tried it at the Shanghai Room on Friday night this week. But my best version of it, I want to say my best 5-minute set I've had since the Fresh and Stale showcase at the end of March of this year. It just felt like my timing was right. I was able to connect with the audience. I didn't step on any of my laughs. And I wish I had a recording of it so much, but I was so rushed to get on stage that I double-clicked the record button at this. So you get like a second of the guy who was introducing me. But it will forever go down as my best 5 so far in April. So hope my set this week. I think it is going to be the Cheney Comedy Showcase. It's going to be a hot show, even if I bomb. Don't come for me. Come for Charles. Come for Kate. It's going to be a hot show. All right, let's hop back into talent stacking, part 2, talent stacking, the in-depth episode. Here, if you didn't go back to listen to episode number 12 about the intro to just trying to talent stack, I'll do a short recap. I think you should still go back and listen. But this idea was first coined by Scott Adams, who was the creator of Dilbert. And he wrote this book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. The idea is that you're mediocre at a few things. Maybe some things that there's a handful of things that you're mediocre at, but you're not a master at any of them. Maybe you're like a B or a B plus in these different categories. But if you put those unique things that you have, those skills, attributes, traits, you stack those on top of each other, and now you have a unique talent stack, unique to you, that no one else has. And that is how you escape competition in your industry, whether you're a comic or you're a writer or I always say you're an accountant. I'd be interested. I didn't interview any accountants, but if you're an accountant, how could a talent stack, maybe it's like you've worked at these different companies, like you have this different accounting experiences, like you've worked in like taxes. I know nothing. I took an accountancy class during college, but I don't know. So for Scott, his unique talent stack, as he says, was he was decent at drawing, he was decent at writing, he had a decent sense of humor, being witty. So he was like a B plus in like all those things. And he put, like, he couldn't be a master or like really proficient at any of them, but you put those together and that ability to create Dilbert, right? So take ordinary talents you have, maybe the top 10% at them, put those together, bang, that's your unique talent stack. Now we have some callers that have called in to the podcast. We're going to listen to their audio here around their feedback around talent stacking.
Cello. This is Teddy Two Fingers, long-time listener, first-time caller. One of my unique talents is only having 2 fingers on my right hand. My occupation isn't gentle to mistakes. I've turned my mistakes, 2 fingers, and woodworking skills to become a speaker on the dangers of not educating the use on power tool safety.
Interesting thoughts, Teddy Two Fingers. I never would have imagined that actually just having 2 fingers on your right hand, but you've really capitalized on what some would view as a weakness. You took that unique thing about you to make you a very talented woodworker. I think that's pretty impressive. What you didn't get to, and what I've been wondering for the past few months, honestly, as you've been leaving comments and supporting the podcast, is how did you lose those fingers? Was it a woodworking accident? Was it an alligator attack? What was it? I know you've lived in Florida for a little bit, and they got alligators down there, right? Or crocodiles? I always forget which one is which. I think the crocodiles are the aggressive ones, so maybe you had a croc encounter. Crikey, mate. All right. Our next caller is Rebecca Comer. Rebecca Comer.
Howdy there. My government name is Rebecca Comer, but my friends call me Books. Yeah, it's kinda quirky. I believe my quirkiness, fun energy, and communication skills is what creates my unique talent stack for educating the next generation.
That's pretty cool. Like, so you already landed a gig. So like talent stacking didn't help you land this job. It just gave you a way to view your performance at your job as a teacher in a way that like brings new life and new energy to your job and really gives you like a better viewpoint of how you uniquely can educate the next generation. I love that. That is so cool. Thank you, Rebecca Comer, for calling in to give us your thoughts. Our last caller in to the poddy, reflecting on talent stack, is Kyle Hempkin. Let's hear from Kyle.
Hey, a tree fell on me a few years ago. Long story short, I was in the woods, and then, bam, a tree fell on me. I can bench 278 pounds and deadlift a Volkswagen Bug. Lastly, I have the ability to be supremely sarcastic, and no one can ever tell. You tell me, what does that qualify me to do?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could write a book with that story. I haven't heard of many people surviving a tree falling on them. But that's certainly a unique experience. It's not really like a skill. And I like this idea. I think Scott Adams was originally saying like the talent stacking. I still haven't read the book, so I don't really know. But it's like talent stacking. But I think, it kind of broadens the definition, but I still think it's like helpful to think through of like, it's a little bit different. However, that is something unique. Like it's like, it could be viewed as a talent, like just like the knowledge of that, like the knowledge that we get from experiences of like going through something that like that actually becomes a talent itself. Like what you've learned from that experience. I think that's really interesting. I think maybe you should consider writing a book. You could just try to write a book. I can interview I'm just trying to write a book. So let's see about that. I never would have thought Kyle Hemken would have wrote a book, but it could happen. It could. And if not, could always go back into the tree cutting business. So I'm looking forward to what happens there. And in episode 12, we also introduced the idea of stacking your day. So I'm not going to go deep into this, but just a quick recap is that there's this idea out there where you can actually transform the normal 24-hour day into 3 days. So when other people are just living 1 day, you can live 3 days in 1 day. Pretty revolutionary stuff. So we named each of those. So again, go back to listen if you haven't listened. But here is what the names of each of these 19 days are. Monday, Moon Day, Might Day. Tuesday, Toon Day, Teeve Day, or Taunch Day. That one's still up in the air. Wednesday, Wild Day, Wump Day. Thursday, Thursday, Thieve Day. Friday, Fun Day, Free Day. Saturday, because it's just your day off, you just get one. No pressure to live multiple days. That's the traditional day. That's the one that stays the same. And then Sunday, Soonday, and Side-Day. Those are the 19 days that you can stack on top of each other. And we got to hear from a few people on how this has impacted their life. So these people wrote in to the poddy to share how this idea of stacking your days has impacted your life. So up first we have Nathan Nollins. Nathan Nollins says that stacking his days actually gave him the ability to eat second breakfast twice a day. Here's what he says. I eat breakfast on Monday and second breakfast on Monday. And then I also eat breakfast on Moon Day and second breakfast on Moon Day. I love breakfast, but I am enamored by second breakfast. So this way of living allows me more of what I love. I'll never go back to the 7-day week. I'm on that 19-day week grind forever. Pretty interesting stuff, Nathan. If you don't know what second breakfast is, it's a reference to Lord of the Rings. The hobbits eat second breakfast. I'm not sure if he's eating full meals, Nathan Nollins is, but maybe it's just like I know for me, I like a bowl of yogurt. My wife makes a delicious bowl of yogurt. She puts all the goodies in there, like granola and honey and whatnot. It's a craft that she has developed. It's she could start a business. But Nathan Nollins, pretty curious. What do you eat for second breakfast? Do you eat the same thing for breakfast on Monday and Moon Day, or you eat different breakfasts and on the second breakfast is the same? I don't know. I need to know more. Our second writer in on how stacking their days has impacted their life is Tyler Walmer. Tyler Walmer. Personally, I love Wild Day. I've been a big proponent of the Wildlife Wednesday movement for a year now, and I dedicate the whole day to that movement. So I accomplish what I regularly accomplish in a normal 24-hour Wednesday activities on Wednesday from 6 a.m. to noon. And then Wild Day, from noon to 6 p.m., I dedicate that whole day to the movement. And Wump Day is prep for the rest of the week. So that's at 6 p.m. to midnight. That's very interesting. How do you fill 6 hours of your life dedicated to the Wildlife Wednesday movement? Are you just telling people? You're walking around saying, hey, you've heard the movement? Join the movement? What are you doing for 6 hours? That's so interesting. But I love the commitment to the movement. Join today. If you don't know what the Wildlife Wednesday movement is, you just wear a wildlife shirt on a Wednesday. We did an episode with my wife, Megan, a few weeks ago. You go back and listen to that. Just trying to start a movement. We talked all about Wildlife Wednesday. Thanks for letting us know, Tyler Walmer. I love that you've been able to stack your days in such a way to give you more focused time to what matters most to you in life. I really, really like that. We got another comment here in how stacking their days has impacted their life. This comes from Cho Fonston. I love dental hygiene as much as the next dental hygienist, but I also like to let loose and hit that local square dancing shindig. But I always would feel bad. Like, what if I didn't accomplish what I hoped to in one day on a Friday? In this new understanding, I don't feel bad about not accomplishing a lot because it's a whole new day. Now, that's a very interesting idea. Like whenever I'll feel like this like a lot. I'll be like, wow, I didn't get done what I wanted to today. It'll kind of bum me out. But then whenever the next day starts, I'm like, it's a whole new day. So if you view your days as stacked, so let's say we get to Friday, that's 6 a.m. to noon, and you're like, I didn't get done what I hoped to get done this week. You're like trying to get into the weekend. You're like, well, you got a whole new day on fun day. So you could spend noon to 6 maybe trying to get some stuff done, or you could just say it's a whole new day. I think that's what Cho Fonston is getting into here, is that, she loves to go square dancing or swing dancing. Square dancing. It's funny because I have a friend named Cho who likes to swing dance. Y'all should link up. I'm not sure what the difference between swing and square dancing is, but sounds like a good time. You guys can figure it out. But just viewing your week this way, so you get into Friday at noon and you're like, man, it's like I didn't get done. Well, then you got a whole new day. You're starting over fresh, His mercies are new every morning. And then our last comment on how stacking their days has impacted their life. And I think this is actually pretty similar to what Cho Fonston was saying. This is coming from Jesse Clevens. Jesse Clevens wrote in, watching my child, Jilly, sometimes can be a challenge. Sometimes it's a good day. Sometimes it's a bad day. And I like to view these days, this has revolutionized my viewpoint of parenthood. Sometimes you're just having a hard day. Jilly could just be having a hard day. Let's say it's Thursday. We get to Thursday and I look at her and I was like, Jilly, it's a whole new day. Let's start over. And it's even good for me to have that reset. So I didn't think too much about it, but it's interesting that two people wrote in about just kind of the resetting of stacking your days and how that can impact your life. So I'm pretty entertained by that. And thank you so much we've heard from so many different people this week around this idea of just trying to talent stack. So I really appreciate you guys writing in, letting us know, even allowing me to interview you, calling in. So much feedback this week. This has been a really fun way to do like a 2-part series, kind of introduce the topic and then talk to a bunch of people and then come back and kind of compile it all. I don't know what we could do about this next. What do you want to hear a 2-part mini-series about in the future? I would love to get into that. I'm going to do a little bit of a film review as we're winding down this week's episode of Just Trying to Podcast. Me and my wife, Megan, we went to go see the new film Air, which is a star-studded film. You've got Maddie D, you've got Benny Aff, you've got Chris Tucky, and many, many more stars on the film. And I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler. So if you haven't seen the film, I'm going to set a timer, so I'm only going to talk about it for 1 minute. So you can fast forward in this episode 60 seconds starting right in a few seconds if you don't want to hear this spoiler. You just skip forward, and then there'll be no spoilers after that. So skip forward 60 seconds right now. Okay, now that we're all in the know, we've seen the film, or you don't care to hear about this spoiler. But in the film, you never see Michael Jordan's face. It dawned on me just when I was falling asleep last night. Wait, we never saw Michael Jordan's face. I don't know how I didn't think about it more when I was watching the film, but I'm now wondering why. Did he not give consent to this film? Or could they not find a Michael Jordan lookalike? Or did they not even feel like, was that a creative decision? They could have, but they decided not to. Why would you not show his face? It did add a level of mystery the more I pondered on it. It didn't really affect me too much in the film. I think maybe I thought a little bit about it, like why haven't we seen his face? But I didn't overthink it. Anyways, I'm so curious of why we did not see Michael Jordan's face in the film Air. If you know, let me know. All right, that's the end. We did it. We did it in a minute. So now that you've rejoined us because you didn't want to miss that, or you don't want to get ruined by that spoiler. It's not a big spoiler, but also I just don't want to, affect the film viewing experience. But if you didn't know, so like Nike's is headquartered in Beaverton. So, the story goes that, well, actually, I'm not going to even say anymore because maybe you just know nothing about Michael Jordan's life and the Nike deal. So I won't even get into that. But I'll just talk about Beaverton. So that's where Nike's like headquartered. One time I went there with my friend Chuck, a.k.a. Kyle Oltekin, a.k.a. Jimmy Chuckles. And he's been on the poddy before, Just Trying to Save Earth. That's a great episode. That's one of my favorite episodes. And we were staying with this guy who worked for Nike. So he gave us like a day pass to get into the store. And that was pretty fun because we got like discounts. So we both bought these Kyrie basketball shoes. Now Chuck found them first, and I bought the same pair. So for a while, we were both doing campus ministry at the University of Missouri together, and we would go hoop to like hang out with guys and just do life together. And it'd be so funny because we'd be matching. But those shoes were so cool. I just had to buy another pair. As much as I want to be unique in my fourness, if you know anything about the Enneagram, I couldn't pass up those shoes. So anyways, we bought those. I bought my first Portland Trailblazers jersey there. Dame time, baby. The future is bright. We are going to draft Wemby. I think we're going to get the number 1 draft pick. I'm excited about that. We're going to win the championship next year. I called it. Anyways, so we went to the company store, and then we went straight from there to the basketball game. If you heard, I think it was in the first episode, the Genesis, where I peed my pants at the basketball game. That was the same day. So we went to the Nike store, went to the basketball game. I peed my pants. So now I have those sweatpants. I have the really expensive Portland Trailblazer sweatpants on. I have my new Damian Lillard jersey. And earlier that day, Dame Time posted on his story. I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before. If I have, I'm sorry. But I just want to chronicle this story. Is that me and Kyle Oltekin once went to an exclusive Portland Trailblazers after party. That's right, folks. I've partied with an NBA player. I'm not trying to flex on you, but I am. His name was Al-Farouq Aminu, a forward for the Portland Trailblazers a few years ago. So what happened was Dame posted on his Insta story, hey, I'm throwing this birthday party for my friend who's in town. They were playing the Pelicans that day. message this guy to get on the guest list. So I messaged the party coordinator, I'll call him. And that sounds so uncool, but and he messaged back while we were at the game, "You're on the list." So we show up. I'm in my jersey and my sweatpants, and we roll up to this party, and we're like, "Hey, we're on the list," which just felt so cool. If you've never done that before, I hope that happens to you in your life. And they kind of like look at us. They're like, "Oh, you're there." And then we walk around the corner, and then there's like a security guy who like double checks that you were vetted at the table, that you're on the list. And he kind of gives us a look over. He's like, "The bathroom's this way." And we're like, "No, we're going up to the party," and like on the upper floor of this like club in Portland. And he kind of like looks us up and down. And then he like lets us go up, and then we waited there for so long. We knew no one. It was like this kind of inner circle thing. People kind of knew each other, but they were dressed to the nines, and we looked like fools. At least I looked like a fool, and we were just in this little booth at this little table waiting. Here's a picture. I still have a picture. In the background, you can see Al Farouk Aminu. We were at this party, just proof that we went there, and we waited as long as we could. It was a long day there in Portland. We waited as long as we could to see if Dame would show up. Unfortunately, Dame never showed up. I don't know if he showed up after we left, but that would have been funny. But what they bring up in the film, anyways, so that's just a little tangent. What they bring up in the film is that, I don't know if this is true, but that the owner of Nike started by selling shoes out of the back of his car. And that got me interesting. Like, what would you sell out of the back of your car? If you were to sell something out of the back of your car, what would it be? That's a pretty interesting idea. I don't know what I think. What I would sell art. I would sell stuff that I painted out of the back of my car, and then I would start selling prints. But they would be like, I don't know. Maybe this is like history from the multiverse, but like in this alternate reality, I am like a Da Vinci. Was Da Vinci an artist? I don't know anything about Michelangelo. I don't know who's like a famous artist. I'm the Van Gogh. There we go. I know that. I'm the Van Gogh. Okay, but without all the craziness. And I sell prints out of the back of in this alternate reality. I have a 1970 Dodge Challenger. It's plum crazy purple. And it's got a big old trunk, so it's just full of my prints. And that's what I sell at the back of my car. But speaking about history from the multiverse, this is gonna be kind of a fun segment of the podcast. So I was thinking about history from the multiverse about Michael Jordan. Like, what if in an alternate universe, the Space Jam film, where Michael is playing basketball against these aliens? Like, what if that was true in a different universe, and that's how the guy in our universe got the idea about the film? Like, he actually is like a time traveler, or he's able to enter through different dimensions, different realities, and that's how he got the idea. We don't know that for sure unless you're him. Then can you confirm? Have you been to an alternate reality where Michael Jordan played basketball against aliens? Is that how you got the idea for the film? In a different reality, Michael Jordan is a realtor. He sold houses. He sells houses, and people rarely say no to him because he doesn't like to lose, right? He's still got that winner mentality, and he has sold the most houses in West Carolina. You're saying, what's West Carolina? Well, I don't know. This is an alternate reality. They don't have the same states. It might not even be the United States. It might be the divided states of America. Isn't that what we're living in? All right, enough about that. Different reality. Michael was a hacky sacker. He's the world's greatest hacky sacker. At the University of Missouri, there's a hacky sack guy who just does hacky sack in Speaker's Circle, and he's like famous on YouTube, and then he got kicked off campus, I think, at one point. I don't know how that happened, but in this alternate reality, Michael Jordan is a better hacky Hacky Sacker. Hacker Sacker? That's kind of hard to say. I once had this friend. I still have this friend. He's still a friend of mine. I don't know, Jordan, are we still friends? He had this thing where he'd have a fanny pack and he'd always have hacky sacks in there. Is hacky sack coming back? I've heard once that hacky sack was making a comeback. Is that true? All right, that was fun. That's history from the multiverse. Some upcoming shows. We got some exciting stuff this week, Thursday. If you were in Eastern Washington, I wore all my Eastern Washington, my Cheney gear, North Star Taps, a local tap house in Cheney. I got my Eastern Eagles beanie on. I'm repping Cheney because it's going down. Cheney doesn't suck. There's going to be the hottest comedy show in the history of Cheney, Washington on University Street. Kind of a specific, but I know Nate Jackson just went there this fall. I'm sure that was a hot show. But this is gonna be the best 420 show in Cheney, Washington in the history of comedy in Cheney, Washington. Kevin Hart with the double A, not the famous one, the lesser known one. He said this is going to be the funniest, clean comedy show on 420 in all of Washington State. So if you are in Cheney, if you're in Spokane, if you're in Eastern Washington, if you're in Northern Idaho, come over to Cheney, buy your tickets today. It's going to be a hot show. Tickets will be $5 more at the door. So save yourself a coffee and get them while you can online. They might sell out before the door. We'll see. All right, towards the end of April, I will be back in Seattle, and I'm going to be on the show Kind Taylor. So maybe you're a fan of comedy. You've heard of Kill Tony, where people are mean. This is local comedian Taylor Clark, a veteran, and some other comics. They're going to do the version called Kind Taylor. Same idea, like a live podcast with up-and-coming comics, and then they kind of like roast you, but like in a nice way and give you constructive criticism. That's going to be on Wednesday, April 26th, I believe. But I don't know the exact details, but that's going to be coming. That's going to be a good show. I think it's going to be in downtown Seattle, I believe. But again, stay in the loop on that. I'm pretty sure it's on April 26th, though. And then the last show to know about is I'll be performing again at Laughs Comedy Club on May 18th, the Thursday showcase. Come out, get your tickets. May 18th, I'll be back at Laughs. We're going to have a lot of laughs. I can't remember how many comics are on that show, but it's some of Seattle's best comics and then me. And we're going to have a good time. And the last thing I wanted to share before we land this plane is I was reading in the book of Proverbs recently because I've been angry. Like I played basketball on Friday and I haven't wanted to just be aggressive so much as when I did this Friday. Like some guy who's like 250, 6'4", I got a rebound and I was going to put it back up, and this linebacker sprints down and bodies me and throws me to the ground. Like, I don't know if you've seen me in person, but I'm not a very large man. I'm like a pretty medium-sized man. This was a very large man running full speed. He just ran right into me, leveled me, didn't say anything. I was like, dude, we're playing at the Rec right now. Back up. Chill out, dog. And I got so upset. I was just so angry. And then I was reading this morning in Proverbs 16. It said, whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. And I was just thinking about how much it bothered me on Friday and how it just really riled me up. And maybe that was an injustice. Maybe I should have been mad about that. I don't know, but I've been quick to anger recently, and that's not a fun way to live. Like, I think life is so much better when you are slow to anger, when you have peace in your life, that things don't easily disturb you. So that was a good word for me. I feel like that's been challenging me today, and I want to focus on that, try to renew my mind with that. So if that encourages you, I hope that blesses you. But I really enjoyed this podcast. Thank you so much for putting your words in. If you have more comments, drop a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, or shoot me an email at MikeTonyHeath@gmail. I would love to know what you got to say. Support the poddy. Any of the links in the bio. Come out to the show this Thursday. Love you guys. And as always, stay funny and stay weird. shot.